Hey folks, welcome back. Thanks again for joining us. We got a lot to get to today, and so I'm not going to take too much of your time talking. I didn't mess around with other people's videos, nothing from YouTube, no air shows, nothing from SpaceX, just our own captures, and it's still a pretty wide range and pretty fascinating stuff. So check it out, and like I say every week, please comment and share them with other people you think might enjoy them, and I will talk to you on the other side. Thanks. All right, folks, let's get to it. This is going to take a minute, but it's worth it. So here we go. You've heard me say many times, these things are crazy. They're like pure energy. They're super interesting, but obviously no wings or anything. And I was talking to Dr. Robert Shipe the other day, and he made a good point too about these things. He's like, there's no such thing as white insects, like that's not even a thing, let alone no wings and moving at speeds like this. But just, as a matter of course, show me a pure white round insect. So yeah, this is pretty crazy. And these things are in formation, and there's actually four of them, which you'll see in a second. And that's a recognizable formation, and this thing just splits them. And check these things out in, real speed. I mean, good luck trying to spot one of these. That is just beyond crazy fast. But, when I look at something like this, the first thing I think when I see like military formations like this are like cockpit cameras. And imagine the quality of cameras and the radar sensors and all the other things they have. They must have an unbelievable footage of these things. You know how sometimes you're walking somewhere like out in public and then you realize you're walking through someone's picture that they're taking, like them and their family or something, and then you're like, oh, whoops, and like you duck out. That's that's how I feel about this when I look at this one. Like it was doing its thing and then it realized and it was like, whoops, sorry. Too, what I like about these, and I've come to realize this recently, is like it doesn't matter how close that is to the airplane. Because if it's just closer to me than it is the airplane, it's still super strange and inexplicable. It doesn't have to be near the plane in order to be anomalous. I'm going to pause this a couple times so you can see. Look at there on toward the left middle, that little black dot. These things are flying around everywhere. Well, I say flying. I don't think they're flying. They're moving around in airspace all over the place. And I pause it again here. There's another one. I mean, if you look closely enough, you see these things everywhere. All right, it's about to get weird now. This has been basically a warm up for the weird. Look at this thing. Look how it's warped around it. It's like distorted, like it's in its own little bubble moving through the air. Yeah, it's just this silver bullet cruising through airspace in its own little bubble. I don't know how much this translates to because, I'm doing this on an iPhone, but this thing isn't fluid at all. Like, we're going to see a bird in a minute, and you'll see what I mean when it's fluid. This is hopping. You see what I mean? How it's like, dut, 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 dut. Like when we record birds and insects, that's not the case. They're very fluid. But this is moving through space differently. It's so fascinating too with this like distortion or plasma bubble that's surrounding it, and like this vague perimeter. It's so common with so many of these, that we see these anomalous captures. I don't know what that is, but look, this is what I mean. Compare that with this. Look at how fluid this is. In every frame it's in, you know exactly what that is, right? There's no question. I can pause this anywhere and no one will have a question. Nope, that's a bird. But this is why I'm showing you this. So we're going to go back to this capture again, right? But we're going to back up a little and look at this. Yep, it's a not bird. it pretends, and then it goes silver bullet in the middle, and then it pretends some more. So like I just said with that bird, we could pause it anywhere and you could tell exactly what it is. So we're going to do some pausing here. And none of these captures look like a bird. It does all kinds of weird, strange stuff. Look at that. What's that? And now it's split in two somehow. And then it comes back together. And then it's into silver bullet mode. I'm out. So here it is zoomed in without the pausing. Look at this. It's like as long as you don't look too closely and too slowly, your brain will just be like, yeah, that's a bird. But the minute you slow it down and actually look at it and zoom in a bit, then you're like, wait, whoa, hold on. We're going to do it again, but on the other side. So it's silver bullet, and then it's going to go back into not bird mode and try to fool people. Look, it's dropping down now for some reason. It's not even linear. Pops back up, splits a little, sort of. I mean, this is nuts. I mean, you could literally take every one of those still shots and show somebody out of context and be like, what is this? And they'd be like, I don't know. None of them look like a bird. And the other thing, too, is I showed you this version of it first, right? And I guarantee you, nobody was like, oh, man, that's just a bird. Because you wouldn't say that looking at this. Because there's no wings, there's no plumage, there's nothing. We're going to move away from this now, but incredibly, this is not the only not bird in this presentation. You know it's nuts when you're like, oh, it's just a nutterfly. Yeah, it's just a Dorito flying through the air, and it has no visible means of propulsion. It's got these vague amorphous borders, and it's going this fast. That is so fast. And I don't know what to say about these things. I mean, and each time I show one, I'm not going to show a butterfly also to prove the difference. I mean, watch the other videos. These are not butterflies, and they are nuts, and that's why I'm calling them nutterflies. I don't know if these things are the same as the nutterflies and they just present differently at different times or whatever, but what I do know is I'd love to see them in a race because they're all really fast. All right, so check this out. I'm in my backyard. I see this green orb fluttering about above my gazebo. I start recording, and then the patio heater, this thing just comes from above it right there and just kind of shoots over my head. And that thing is like transparent, and you'll see it a little more closely here when we pause it. It's like these other things, these ill-defined borders. It's not really clear what it is. And it's obviously it's super fast with no obvious sign of propulsion. And here's another pause where you can see how translucent this thing is. I mean, you can see the trees behind it right through it, and then it goes away and the trees become more clear. I don't know how to explain it, but this green orb was just as cool. It was like a two for one. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments what you think is more dynamic. But I mean, they're both really cool, and you'll see them in real speed too. This green orb was moving. The other thing too, I'm calling this an orb, but I don't know what it is. And maybe it isn't. I don't know, what's an orb? What's the definition of an orb? I don't know. But this thing was moving around and it wasn't obvious what it is. But just like I was saying earlier with those other things, how there's no fluidity to the movement and it's just like that's how this thing was. You saw it in real time. There was nothing fluid about it. It was like moving differently. So we're out of the darkness, back into the daylight and the comfort of our regular little white energy balls. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like at 4K and 60 frames per second, it shouldn't be this dot 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 dot. It should be super fluid. Okay, and speaking of which, this one actually is a bit more fluid. It's not moving at that super high rate of speed like that last one was, and a lot of these white energy orb type things we see. And we're getting faster and closer to real speed and zooming out as we do it. So eventually you're going to see a plane, and this thing is just sort of like fluttering away from a plane. Okay, and so you see the plane, you see the white sort of orb, and it's just sort of, coasting down, and then it seems to get intercepted by a bird. So you just saw that in real distance and real speed, and it's obviously very difficult to see, right? But I mean, that's the point of this exercise. It's like if you look closely and slow it down, you see things that are existing even though you didn't realize they're existing and occurring. Okay, so now we're focusing on the right side coming from down from the top and hooking over. And this is what I referred to as a bird, and I said it kind of intersected it. And so let's take a little closer look at this. I don't know, folks. The closer I get, the less it looks like a bird. And speaking of which, just as a reminder, this is what a bird looks like when you record it and slow it down. Let's go back. Let's go back to this. It seems to be flapping wings. I mean, you know, fine, but let's get closer. And then you're like, well, where are the wings? Okay, those aren't wings. That doesn't look like a bird. Don't know what that is. Hmm. Nope. Yeah. So we had that, whatever that was, and this hanging out together, and I suspect it's not a coincidence. All right, something relatively mundane in comparison to that, but like Dr. Shipe and I were talking about earlier, no such thing as these white insects that are going this fast with no wings. And too, this might be an obvious inquiry and I just don't verbalize it or consider it, but where are these things coming from when they're coming in at this angle? So this is kind of a cool, funky little situation. I'm pausing it here so you can see that thing there, right? And then it goes from left to right and then it hangs out by the wing there for a second. And then it continues on. And then now it's on the right side. So it's not in a lot of frames there, but obviously we're zoomed in. But I'm pausing it there so you can see. And I'm going to pause it again here. Same thing. And then you'll see it again. Now it's on the right side. Look here, though, on the bottom left corner. And then it darts from left to right a little bit and shows up there. And then it's gone, but then look above it on the far left. Right there. And that's where the other one starts. So I don't know if it's the same one and it did a zigzag or if there's two different things going on here. But what I do know is that at real speed, in real time, you're basically seeing none of it with the naked eye, which is just crazy. All right, here's another crazy one. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit. I'm going to do my best here. So you see this thing going from right to left. And, I don't know. It seems like it's close, pretty close to the camera, but you see it. It's there. It's a thing. Like the sense I get is that it's not a big knot cloud over the mountain range. I think it's something closer to the camera. But now you're going to see it again, but ignore it because I want to show you something else. That little white orb out there is over the mountain range. So whatever that other thing was zipping by in the foreground, it is what it is. But then there's also this thing. And it's not dropping down quickly, but you can definitely tell that it's dropping down. So it's not like it's a star or something, That thing is moving down. If you've watched enough of these presentations, you know that there's something going on with these mountains. I mean, these are the same mountains that NASA JPL is in, and on the other side of these mountains, Lockheed Skunk Works and a bunch of other defense contractors and Edwards Air Force Base is in the high desert, which is the other side of these mountains. So anyway, this thing's moving around, just sort of tracking this plane, and then this other thing just zips by like super fast. And just like I mentioned before with the dot dot dot, notice the distinct absence of fluidity here. So, I just talked about that one that's moving quickly and the lack of fluidity, but, let's also not lose this. Like, what is this? Okay, so this thing initially presents as this white orb for like a nanosecond, and then it goes further to the right, and then it pops up again as a black, whatever that is. And then it moves over to the right some more, and then it just kind of manifests out of nowhere. And there's a pause, and it seems to be like tearing into the environment somehow. And again, see far left, it's a white orb. And then it blinks out, and then you'll see it again in the middle, right there, where it's black, like a blob, very faint. And then it goes away, and then all of a sudden, it just comes into existence there on the right, and then does that going down. Here it is slowed, but backed away, and you basically can't see it. All you see is it coming into existence on the right. And I had to backtrack and find where it came from, and that's how I found the black spot in the middle and then the white orb on the left. I know some of the stuff is really hard to see and might seem like a stretch, but the reality of the situation is that when we're recording anything prosaic, it's not hard to track, and you don't struggle to figure out where it's coming from, or nothing's just popping into existence. It's only with these things that it has these tendencies. Okay, so if you're in your 50s like me or older, you're going to immediately recognize this as being from the original Clash of the Titans with Harry Hamlin. This is the the golden mechanical owl. And the reason I'm showing this to you is because this next capture, when I saw it and really looked at it, I immediately thought about this golden owl from the movie. All right, so here are a few stills. Like, that's not an insect. But there's also no plumage. There's no feathers or anything. And when you see how it moves its wings, it's hyper mechanical, but at an absurd speed too. Look, and this is why I immediately thought about the golden owl and Clash of the Titans. And ironically, that in that movie, that's a gift from the gods. It's sort of hard to put into words, but you know, I mean, it's not an insect, and insects don't flap their wings in that way. They almost like vibrate their wings more. This is like an odd flapping, but also there's no tail feathers. There's there's no wing feathers. There's nothing that makes you think it's a bird. It looks more like this than anything else, and that's just nuts. At least in Clash of the Titans, they threw down some feet and got some talons and a beak to work with. I've said so many times with these presentations, and I don't mind repeating it. If there's an insect expert that knows what this insect is, and it's reflective, like metallic, like this, and it has these odd wing structures and behaviors, just let us know what it is. And while you're at it, you might as well also let us know why it is that they seem to always visually intersect or get close to aircraft and birds and anything else in the air like this. Why is this so repeatable? The other question that comes to mind too is that there's footage like this from all over the planet, literally. And it's these same things that present in the same visual way with the same apparent behaviors. Like, why would that be globally consistent? All right, folks. So we're going to wrap up with this one. I got this footage, and Dr. Shipe and I exchanged a few emails, and he was kind enough to do an interpolation for me. And the reason I shared it with him because it was dynamic, and to me, it's sort of self-explanatory. But look at this. It starts out very close to the camera, and then this is a zoom in on the other side of that when it's further away. And when you see it in real time, it looks like a cartoon because the speeds involved are just preposterous. And you'll see. And here it is in real time, 3 times over. And hopefully you see there why I said it's cartoonish. I mean, it looks unbelievable. For something to be that close to the camera and then in a second, not even a second, nanoseconds later to be that far away from the camera, and still, even being that far away, it's still hopping through, which means it's not in all the frames. I mean, there's nothing fluid about that. It, it defies logic. And speaking for myself, it's moving faster than anything I'm aware of in the natural world. It's not to say it doesn't exist and other people, are aware of it. I'm just saying it stretches the bounds of my understanding and my knowledge. I don't know anything in the natural world that's capable of moving at these speeds as indicated by this interpolation by Dr. Shipe. Okay, there you go. The not bird thing is a weird one. I'm the first one to admit it. It's strange. And trust me, I'm not looking for that. I'm just finding things and then calling it like I see it. Uh, if I was walking down the street and saw something that looked like a dog from a distance and then actually slowed it down and looked more closely and it didn't look like a dog, I'd be like, that's a not dog. So, that's just what I'm seeing in the sky. And I don't know how to explain it. And hopefully, the feedback, the comments, the dialogue, we can make some headway and figure some of these things out. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Please comment, and like I always say, share them with other people you think might enjoy them, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, folks.